What's up, my Makokos, Raid Pros, and Bonk Bros? Defender here, and I hope you're all doing fantastic. Now, today we're going to be talking about Berserker's technique, because Berserker has just had a big change that Korea had a few months ago, and we can finally test it ourselves on the live server for us, and really get into just how good the changes have been. Now, there is also some changes that affect Mayhem, and I will link a Korean player who's covered Mayhem extremely well. Name is Sonic, and you can find out all his details below. Please make sure you check him out for more details. So, let's get into the build. So first off, nothing has really changed in terms of your stat distribution. You do want to have around 1535 specialization, as this is kind of the peak point for you to get into your burst with using only 5 abilities, and that is where the best part of this change comes from. So we're going to be using some new skills, we're going to be changing a gem, and there is some flexibility in the engraving. So these are all really good news. The other changes to consider are that your burst mode is slightly shorter now as a result of the changes, but that you do more damage in those burst windows, and we're no longer relying on Strike Wave, which was a god-awful ability. Thank God it's gone. I will not miss it. Rip Bozo. So let's look at the skills. Now that we've explained the stats that we need, we want to have a little bit of swiftness, okay, whether it's a ring or a combination of ring and a bracelet. You don't need to necessarily get one from an earring, because you really want to try and get 1500 specialization. That is your goal off the bat. So skills then. So this is pretty much the same as the previous build I covered for Berserker's technique in my extensive guide. I'll put a link in the description to this video as well, so you can go and check that. It covers the fundamentals of the build, and we're just going to be changing a couple of abilities. So here we have Windblade, which is our biggest generator, okay, and we're going to be using 332, and we're going to have the best wealth rune we have on the ability, okay. And then we have Red Dust, which is our crit and attack power buff. This hasn't changed. We're going to be running the same as before, a 1-1-1, only with tripod in vital point hit for the crit rate. Okay, and then we move to Mountain Crash. Mountain Crash has had a big change, fantastic change for us, and that is that we now get crit rate buff with it, so we can essentially run Red Dust for a burst window, and then Mountain Crash for a mini burst window, okay? And we're going to be taking Focus and Vital Point Hit. I only have level 4 here, but level 5 gives you the same as the Red Dust would do for crit rate, okay, 33.2. We're not going to be leveling up the Focus because we're very tripod poor. We want every single important tripod we can get, so we're not taking any excess ones. Okay, and then we have Tempest Slash, and this is where we're going to be taking the focus level, because the generation of identity gauge is higher in Tempest Slash than it is in Mountain Crash by a small amount, but still, because of the multiple hits, it generates more, and it's definitely worth having the wealth rune on it as a result, and putting the focus level 5, running weak point, and driving hit. Some people in Korea do actually run Storm Slash, but I mean, it's much of a muchness. I mean, my preference is driving hit. Okay, and then we have Hellblade. Hellblade hasn't really changed. We're not taking the tripod on Leap because, like I said, we need more important ones. We're going to be running Melt and Earth Flip. I believe Mayhem does change, and sometimes they will run Lava Jet, Bloody Eruption, maybe taken off from Deadly Blow, I'm not sure. Check out Sonic's video that I talked about already. But we can't change off of Melt and Earth Flip because we need the multi-hits, and we need it to stack up to 5 for it to be viable, okay? And that's running the second best Gale Winds that we have, so the epic ones. And then I'll cover Finish Strike next, because we have 2 new abilities. So Finish Strike has had a change to its tripods, has Gravitational Blow. Now, this, in my opinion, is worth running over Enhanced Strike. Okay, it just means that you have a slightly longer cast window, but without running Mayhem, it's very difficult to get an extra ability into your Red Dust window, so it doesn't quite feel right, and maybe the last hit of this will not fit in the Red Dust window, or it will affect the final ability you're trying to put into the Red Dust window because of it being almost quick enough for you to put it in. It doesn't quite feel right, so for that, I mean, I would say to only focus on 3 strong abilities and not risk halving the damage on a 4th, and take Gravitational Blow if you have it. If you don't, just run Enhanced Strike for now, and work on getting Gravitational Blow. Running 332 on all max tripods here, as high as you can get. And this is where you want the legendary Galewind rune, your highest Galewind rune that you want. Okay, so whatever the highest is, put it on this one. And then when we eventually get the second legendary Gerwin, you will put it on the Overdrive, which is our new ability. It is our Strike Wave replacement. It needed to go, and I'm so happy that it has. Here we're going to be running a 3-2-2. Now there is some wiggle room here to run 3-2-1 instead. Ruthless having no charge up time and doing decent damage, so it has a quicker cooldown as a result. But essentially, you want boss damage, you want the ability to get the cooldown reset, which is where coming into your burst really plays a big role, and I'll show you in a minute just how well it works. Okay, so this is going to be used before burst, and then you're going to be having it available for burst as well, which Strike Wave never had before, which is a fantastic change for this ability. It helps us get into burst so much quicker because we're not having to worry about saving this for our burst windows. Okay, so this is the way I run it, and you can take Ruthless instead, but I believe the change in DPS is very small. You're just going to be having this in more of your burst windows. But in my opinion, we have enough 3 skillers to put in the burst windows that you can just run Limit Break for higher damage in those Red Dust windows, okay? I think a few of them end up being inside the Mountain Crash window instead, which doesn't have attack power buff. So play around with both of them, but I feel like Limit Break does come up on top. Okay, and then the other new ability, which was a replacement from a previous skill, is Brave Slash. Now, Brave Slash is a fantastic, very quick skill, and it has, again, the option similar to Overdrive, where we can get this back as soon as we hit Burst Mode. I'm sorry if you can hear my dog snoring underneath my feet at the moment, so please ignore Iggy. He, as always, wants to make a cameo in some form. So we're running here 2-3-2. Now, I believe this is the best way you can run this. Again, we have the reset as soon as we hit Burst, and we're doing more damage with it in Burst, which is very important because this is used in every single buffed burst window. So whenever you're buffing your crit, this is always used in it. It's a very quick ability to get off with 2 hits, and it feels very good. Okay, and that's why we take quick prep, and then we take, so it's 2-3-2, and we want to max it out as best as possible. And we're going to be using a wealth generator for this because, like I said, we can use it before our burst window, and then it resets into the burst window. Okay, so you want 12 on definitely Finish Strike leveled up, definitely Overdrive leveled up, and definitely Hellblade. Okay, and I tested between Brave Slash and Tempest Slash, and Brave Slash actually came out on top between the two by about 5 or so percentage at the same skill level. So Brave Slash is slightly superior damage to Tempest Slash, but, you know, don't worry about getting it to 12 if you don't have the skill points, or if you wanted to maybe split the skill points other ways around, maybe improve Mountain Crash to Earth Shock, whatever your preference is. But just know that this is the 4th best damage skill if you wanted to go for your skill levels. Okay, then talking about gems quickly. Gems is the same as before, except for a change to one of them. So before, you would have been running damage and cooldown on Finish Strike, Bloody Rush, Tempest Slash, Strike Wave, and Hellblade, okay? Now, we're taking away the cooldown on Tempest Slash, and we're putting it on Brave Slash as damage, okay? So we have Overdrive, damage cooldown, Tempest, damage cooldown, your Bloody Rush ability, which is your identity, damage cooldown, Finish Strike, damage cooldown, Red Dust, just cooldown, and then Brave Slash and Tempest Slash are damage, okay, because they are short enough abilities to put in your windows that you don't need cooldown. So those are the gems. And then let's come to the engravings. Now, this is where there is some flexibility, which is great. So we're going to be running Salvation, Relic Armor Set, and we're going to be running Berserker's Technique, Grudge, Keen Blunt, and Raid Captain. Those are musts, okay? Those 4 are mandatory. And then the last one is flexible, which is between Mass Increase and Curse Dull. Now, I prefer Mass Increase because of how quick it is now to get into burst mode. You don't feel that attack speed penalty when you're running Salvation, and burst mode benefits of being maxed out on your speeds. So it actually negates it perfectly. But, you know, obviously people aren't a fan of Mass Increase because outside of burst it does feel clunky. So please consider playing around with both Curse Stall and Mass Increase. The difference is very negligible. Mass Increase obviously does come out on top, but it does feel a little bit clunky to begin with, and it probably will save you a lot of money in gearing as well, swapping that out instead of Curse Doll. So just consider that. Okay, so that is all of the build breakdown. And then let's quickly talk about getting into burst mode, because there has been some changes, like I said, with the skills, and it means that we can take full advantage of this and go straight into burst mode with just one small rotation. And this is huge because we don't have to hold abilities for the burst mode because we're going to get some resets. And I'll show you now how it works. So straight off the bat, we're going to be using our wealth generators that have the big runes on them first. So we're going to do, I'll show you in slow motion, basically, skill by skill, how it works. So my preference, this doesn't need a specific order because you're going to be trying to get into your burst mode as quick as possible. All 5 of these abilities need to hit. So preferably starting with the first 2 here. So Windblade into Tempest Slash, you do Windblade, and then Tempest Slash, okay? And then you want to hit your Mountain Crash into Brave Slash and Overdrive, okay? And the window from Mountain Crash's crit buff is big enough for you to hit both of these abilities. That's 1, Overdrive into 2. And that is just enough specialization to hit perfectly. Anything less than what I have here, so anything less than, let's say, 1530 or so, anything less than that overall, including the pet, will not be enough to get you into that window. And I'll show you right now just by taking away some of this. If we go down to 25, for example, I'll show you just how important it can be. Okay, so that's reset. You can see we have nothing here. So Windblade, Tempest Slash. And as you can see, we're just shy of activating the burst mode. So that is where it really comes down to how crucial the specialization is. But there is a trick you can do to outperform that difference. So let's say you have 1525 here, okay, and we know it's not enough. What we can do is we quickly reset this specialization meter, is you can change your wind blade into Squall on the tripod settings, okay? And what this does is it changes the ability to look like this, okay, but it actually generates more specialization meter than the original here, okay? So I'll quickly just reset our cooldowns and we'll show you. So it's a slower cast, okay, but it generates more in the scheme of things. And that allows you some wiggle room on your specialization, which is huge if you can't afford to get into that window. So technically speaking, you could probably drop that quite a considerable amount and use Squall instead if it's more of a budget build. But I prefer Windswift because I have the higher specialization. So that is up to you. Which one works? Play around with it yourself in Trixian and see what you think. Okay. So what I'll do now then is I'll just quickly show you me getting into burst with the rotation. Okay, just to show you how smooth it feels and how smooth it actually is in practice. Obviously, there is going to be some downtime between the boss movements and stuff, and then you would have to just wait for one of those to come back up on cooldown. Luckily, the first 3 are very quick to get back, so it's this quick. Okay, so that's very, very quick. And as you can see, when I hit Burst, Overdrive and Brave Slash both came off cooldown. Windblade was ready, and then obviously you have your Red Dust to use immediately in the window for your Awakening, your Bloody Rush, etc. So that is getting into Burst, and that is the most important part of the changes. It's fantastic, and there's less penalties now to getting into it with our abilities. Okay, and just to note that both of these are non-positionals, so you don't have to be behind the boss for these 2. Obviously, you will do more as a result of being behind them, because obviously you're buffed to damage and crit rate from back attacking. So now that we're in our burst, let's talk about the way to prioritize our abilities in burst. Now, Bloody Rush hasn't changed. It is still our biggest damage ability. And we want to use that as quick as we can in our burst mode and always in a Red Dust window, okay? Because it is such huge damage, we want to make sure that we're using our Bloody Rush in our Red Dust window, and we want to make sure that we're using our Awakening in our Red Dust window, okay? So make sure that those 2 are always in your Red Dust windows. And as you're going to see, as we play around with these, I'll show you that you can always get 3 of your strong abilities into your Red Dust and your Mountain Crash windows, and that's the idea behind the rotations. There's never a set rotation, just a priority. So if I quickly get into Burst, okay, and we're going to hit Burst, and then we're going to Red Dust into Bloody Rush, into Finish Strike, into Brave Slash. And that's because Finish Strike has the same cooldown as Red Dust with the same cooldown gems. Like I said in my previous video, you want these 2 to always be used in the same rotation because they'll always be available together. And it's also an incredibly big amount of damage. It measures up to a lot of the other skills. So another Red Dust window would be into Overdrive, into Finish Strike, into Brave Slash. Okay, and as you can see again, we can get Brave Slash and Finish Strike off in the same window with Overdrive, same as Bloody Rush. Okay, and another one. Okay, and another one would be with Red Dust. Is Red Dust, Hellblade, Finish Strike, Brave Slash. Okay, and as you can see, that just about fits in the window. Hellblade obviously is slightly longer than the other two to cast, and that's why some people prefer to take the Enhanced Strike over Gravitational Blow on the Finish Strike because it's quicker to cast and they're less susceptible to mess up a rotation, or maybe even they can fit in slightly more in their rotations. Okay, so let's say your Red Dust is down and you want to try and use your Mountain Crash for another crit window. So we've done our Red Dust into Bloody Rush, Finish Strike, and then Brave Slash. You can then do Mountain Crash into Hellblade and Tempest Slash. Now, the best part about Tempest Slash is that it's very quick, it's low cooldown, and you can get it into the end of either Red Dust or Mountain Crash's rotations instead of Brave Slash. So these two are pretty much interchangeable at the end of one of your crit windows. So if you use one for one of them, you're probably going to use the other for your other window. So I'll quickly show you again what it would look like in a 2 rotation so you can see. Okay, and then you're just going to be auto-attacking to get them back off cooldown. Now, this isn't necessarily the biggest way you can do burst damage. If you had a smaller burst window, the best way you can do burst damage would be to Red Dust, Bloody Rush, Overdrive, and then Brave Slash. And that would be in the Red Dust window, and it would do your biggest burst potential outside of your Awakening. Again, with your Awakening, you can also do Red Dust, Bloody Rush, Awakening. Okay. So those are some of the biggest ways you can do your burst, and there is no set rotation. Unfortunately, the cooldowns don't line up as well as they do in Mayhem now. Mayhem has some really, really good cooldown synergy, and this has always been the problem with Berserker, is the cooldowns of abilities not lining up for perfect rotations. Especially in a specialization class, which is what a lot of them actually run and want to do. So bear that in mind. There is no perfect rotation, at least not the one that I can figure out off the bat. Perhaps someone such as Saint Tone or another big Korean player or another big Western player has figured out a perfect rotation, but for me it seems like a priority system is the best way to do this, making sure that either Red Dust or Mountain Crash is used before your burst window, same as before. But now we have these new skills, and we want to try and put them into our rotations as best as possible, okay? So I'll try and put up on the screen as best as I can. If you're Red Dusting, you want one of your 3 big abilities next, followed by Finish Strike and Brave Slash. And then if you're Mountain Crashing, you want to make sure you're using a big ability continued with a Tempest Slash at the end, okay? And that is essentially the best way to go about doing it. And I'll show you quickly just now a full burst rotation with our identity until it expires, and then getting back into the burst again, just so you can see like a full rotation. Okay, so getting into burst, very quick, nice and easy, and this is the best change we've had. Okay, we're going to go to Red Dust, Bloody Rush, Finish Strike, Tempest Slash, Hellblade because it does slightly lower damage. And we can just put in a Windblade there. Okay, and we're going to rotate again now into Red Dust because it's our priority. I'm going to do Overdrive, into Finish Strike, into Brave Slash. Okay, and then you could throw a Bloody Rush into the end of Mountain Crash. I'm just going to keep attacking. There's a lot of in-between filler with these builds, unfortunately. Again, as you can see, our Hellblade is ready, off cooldown, and we can throw in Brave Slash at the end there. Okay. And as you can see, there's always a Mountain Crash or a Red Dust that lines up with one of the big hitting abilities, and either Tempest Slash or a Brave Slash, so it's perfect. And in this example, I've not done an awakening skill, but that is obviously up to your leisure when you want to use one. Okay. And we could put like mana efficiency on so that you can see what this looks like in a real scenario, but there we go, we're back into our burst again with the 5 abilities. So it kind of works out perfectly. There's always one of those 2 up, and there's always a big ability ready to time with one of these 2 to finish. So get used to using that kind of combination. Get used to which one's a priority when you're going through them. I believe the damage priority for the big ones of the 3 is Bloody Rush first, and then you would probably go for Overdrive and then Hellblade. So that is the order of the best damage abilities if you were to choose a priority when doing Red Dust. But also just know if Red Dust is down and only one of these is up and you have Mountain Crush, you shouldn't be holding them because you want to make sure you get at least, your 5 windows of burst in during the identity state, okay? And that is it, guys. That is everything. I've covered pretty much all the fundamentals in the previous video. Nothing has changed in terms of the fundamentals of the build. You can play around with stimulants for this build as well. But as a whole, it has probably gone up by about 20 or so %, I believe, in damage from previously. So a big buff. Is it competitive? That's a great question. I don't really play with other Berserkers in the groups I play with. It just hasn't been the case. But definitely there are more Mayhem Berserkers now playing as a result of the buff, because Mayhem has had a nice change to it as well, and the abilities fit perfectly into the rotation as well. So you're probably going to see a lot more people playing Berserkers again, at least on their ults. They're going to be picking them back up to try them, and they're performing very well. Berserker's technique, I don't think it's as competitive as Mayhem at the moment, but obviously the burst windows and specialization make it extremely valuable for playing in a group that communicates. You can really phase bosses and mechanics really well. So there's a lot to play around with, and I feel like that obviously makes a lot of builds superior in the game, especially more meta. So give it a try if you haven't already. If you have, let me know in the comments down below. Maybe if I've missed something in the build, maybe there's something glaringly obvious that I'm not covering, please let me know. I'd like to address it if I have missed it. I hope you guys understand everything I've gone through today. I really think it's a fantastic change for Berserker that it needed, and hopefully we see more people playing Berserker's technique, and it's less memed, and maybe we're less gatekept. I mean, fingers crossed we're less gatekept, and maybe, I can get some footage of Brashar's hard mode in April on the Berserker. So thank you very much, guys. I really appreciate all your support. I hope this video helped you in some form. Please let me know in the comments down below if you're going to be trying out this build, or if you're going to be trying out Mayhem. And please go over to Sonic and show him some love for the Berserker Mayhem stuff, because he covers it extremely well. Very knowledgeable, very highly skilled Berserker player. So yeah, that's everything from today's video, guys. I will see you in the next one. You have a lovely day and take care. Peace.